Welcome back, everyone. We're glad you're tuning in to another episode of Ridgeview's podcast where we cover everything hope, healing, and recovery related. We hope that you will subscribe to our channel and, as I've been told, ring that bell so that you receive the latest notification for our weekly upload. Also want to point out our COVID helpline, which will remain up here throughout this recording. If you or someone you know is in need of someone to talk to, we have trained counselors who are available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day of the week. They don't pretend to have the answer to everything, but will lend a listening ear and a welcoming voice and try to help network you to resources that can assist in helping a recovery journey in response to COVID-19. My guest today, Hannah Samawi.
Hi.
What a great smile this morning.
I know, now you can see my face. This
Yes,
is exciting.
I know. Well, get the measuring stick out here. We're 6 feet apart, so I really appreciate you taking time out to talk about what I find to be a very interesting and admittedly complex topic today. So our topic is mindfulness today. So I have a confession. This may not come as a surprise, but mindfulness, meditation, practices of maybe stillness, quietness, I've never really been good at. And honestly, I've never been good. When people say, for folks of the faith tradition, and they say, well, have you thought about a contemplative prayer? No, I haven't. I'm not good at it. I don't know what I'm doing half the time. So I come into this conversation with a level of admission and confession that for years I've sort of kept it at a distance. Then I came across the work of Bessel van der Kolk. Now this fella here, he's my new bromance. Mm-hmm. See, I've tagged all his stuff. The Body Keeps the Score. Mm-hmm. The Body Keeps the Score, everybody. I encourage you to check it out. Mm-hmm. Or on YouTube, type in his name and you can come across some interesting podcasts where he talks about this. So I want to read one quote here from his book and then help me unpack it. So he says, for those that don't know, Dr. van der Kolk is a psychiatrist who really kind of launched into a great deal of discussion around post-traumatic stress, first with veterans and then did a lot of work with where and how people who are going through traumatic experiences, where it may not just be experienced in the head, but in the body. Okay. I've probably butchered his theory, but that's the layman's take on it. Mm-hmm. So this quote, he says, mindfulness not only makes it possible to survey our internal landscape with compassion and curiosity, but can also actively steer us in the right direction for self-care. So I should be all about that. Because I love curiosity, I love compassion, and I love self-care. So what is mindfulness to you?
That is the question, right? Because I think anywhere you look, you're hearing about meditation and mindfulness in conjunction with other treatment to help stress, anxiety, depression, what have you. And mindfulness to me, and this has taken years for me to also kind of come to terms that this may need to be part of my daily practice to really live a rich life. But I think it's just waking up to the moment, because so often, guilty of it, we live in our heads and we're always running and thinking and planning in the past and the future, and to really take a deep breath, to feel our body, in this seat with our feet on the ground, just reminds us that we're not just a mind, but we also have a body, and those two things exist together. And I think, too, with things like anxiety and depression, when you think of being nervous, it shows up in the body, right? It's not just thoughts or continuous worry, it's tension, it's sweating, it might be fidgeting. And so number one, being aware of that, and then kind of learning how to embrace it for what it is and create space for it. So letting it in and then also letting it go.
So, did I hear you also make a confession that your views around mindfulness have changed over the years?
Oh, yes. Oh,
Okay.
yes. Because I mean, to tell somebody, like you said, to be still. That sounds like the worst solution if you're struggling. But what I found is the more we run from something, the bigger it gets. And so mindfulness is a way to turn towards instead of turning away.
I like that. Turn towards instead of away. Well, how would, I mean, for someone, let's say someone is tuning into this and they too are like, yeah, I'm not sure I get this mindfulness stuff. How could we describe the practice of it in a way that might be tangible, understandable, and that they could actually do right now?
Mm-hmm. So it's simpler than I think I wanted to accept in the beginning. And so what I would say is to get in a comfortable seated position and to start taking some breaths. And very naturally, the mind is going to wander. And so our instinct is to beat ourselves up and to say, no, I'm supposed to be meditating, or, this is a mindfulness practice and it needs to look like this. And to just notice that, right? And so, again, to create space for what we sometimes think of as failure. And so we notice the thought, we notice the running, and we bring it back gently with compassion, right? Oh, I'm doing that thing. Let me come back here right now in this body. Experience the breath. Experience, and there's so many different types of mindfulness too. And, some people enjoy body scans. That is not, I just fall asleep. I just get comfy and kind of fall asleep. But for me, there's such a range of practice that, kind of bringing it in more into daily activity. Like we were talking before this about, I was walking this morning and noticing the drops of water on the branch, right? So being present in my surroundings and noticing what it feels like to just take steps and to move this body. So I think there's such a range depending on what somebody's needs are, what their interests are, and what they're comfortable with.
Yeah. When you were just describing, taking a breath, and I was listening to you, and I almost felt like I was falling into a guided imagery, and you were I was like going there.
Yeah.
So sometimes a guide can help you lean into it, as they say.
100%. So I guess it was, let me think, 8 years ago, I took my first mindfulness-based stress reduction course, and I did research in it when I was in undergrad, and it was so hard for me, and I had a guide, one of the best guides, and it was just so challenging. And what I found is I did it again in grad school, and just continuing to go back and explore and remain open. And yeah, we need people's help. I don't know that we come to anything alone, anything meaningful.
So, yeah, I mean, that's great. It's has me thinking about a number of different things. So, in terms of meditation versus mindfulness, are they the same thing or are they different?
Yeah, so mindfulness is a form of meditation. And I think one thing that may be different, and some people may disagree, is, with mindfulness, the goal isn't necessarily, we don't set out with a goal, right? So it's not that, I want to feel different, so I'm going to do this thing. It's just about becoming present and aware and open. And I think sometimes with meditation, there is more of a goal of cultivating compassion or self-love. And, meditations can, I guess, have more of an intention, but mindfulness is just about waking up to the present and engaging with what is.
Now, in your experience, is this something that one might need to? I did hear you uh, imply that practicing it is part of it. You don't start out suddenly being a master of mindfulness techniques. You have to practice it, right? So, do you, like anything else, is it something that you would encourage people to schedule into their day? Or whether it's the start of the day, you reference walking this morning and this word notice, taking notice of the small, still, natural things. Maybe that would be for someone who might be thinking, maybe I should test this out. Maybe I should experiment with it. Maybe at 10 o'clock during my break, I'll simply go walk around, or maybe I'll just get grounded in my seat, do a body scan, head to toe. How's my body, what messages is my body sending me?
Yes, again, I think it's different for different people. So, in my experience, some people thrive in a schedule. And in the beginning, for me, it was this is what we do, right? Because behavior change takes time. And so I would designate time and I'd have a little area of the house and a little pillow, like, kind of what you would imagine, because that's what I thought it was supposed to look like. And as time has gone on, I found that I try to just integrate it throughout the day. But in the beginning, I found it very helpful I would just look up like a 10-minute mindfulness meditation, or, there's a lot of really good apps. Trying to think, the Calm app. I love the lady's voice in it, and there's like a sound of rain in the background. And so again, it's like finding what works, but there is so many resources and free resources that, can support people on this journey.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there are other resources, apps, so that's great. Encouraging folks to check those out. Um, well, let me ask you this. Uh, so I think part of my difficulty is I don't like being still. I'm fairly active. And active, so the longer the swim, the longer the bike ride, the longer I don't run anymore. I should say slow shuttle jog, the better, because I kind of slip away. I drift off. I don't know where I'm going, but I do kind of check out. Is that, without knowing it, is that a meditative mindfulness state?
Yeah, and when I started this journey and was exploring, I would be so hard on myself because I would be like, I'm not doing it right. It's supposed to look like this or like that. And I had a friend tell me, she was like, you basically practice this almost every day of the week, because when you are exercising, the mind quiets, and you're focusing on the breath and you're engaged with the body and the sensations that are happening in the body. And so, whether those mechanisms internally work the same, I think the outcome is the same. Right afterwards, how do you feel?
Yeah.
And it's kind of that like big, deep breath. Yeah.
You mentioned breath several times, and so I recently came across the work of James Nestor, who wrote a book called Breath. And I've not listened to it or read it in its entirety, but it has struck me his emphasis on this lost art of breathing through your nose, like nasal breathing, and what that does. And to your point, he talks about just starting out with like a minute, then go to a minute and a half, then to 2 minutes. Like, it's that difficult for people to do. But how the physical improvements it'll lower blood pressure, it will lower your heart rate, it will equalize exchange of CO2 and oxygen at the rate that your body intends for it to be done. And it gets into sleep breathing and all these other things. But I thought, oh my gosh, is that, wow, I need to learn more about this. So breathing seems to be a critical part of this practice.
Yeah, you know, a lot of the research shows that mindfulness can impact our bodies on like a cellular level, right? So you can visually see the difference between somebody who has never done it and somebody who's been practicing it. And, you know, when we're talking about trauma and just stress and the impact on the brain and specifically like the amygdala, right? Fight or flight. And then all of a sudden, we're creating safety through the breath, right? Settling the body, settling the cortisol, bringing it all down. Naturally, you're going to feel better, you know, but it definitely takes practice. You know, that 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, and sometimes that's still what it is. But it's better than 100 miles an hour every day.
Well, this conversation has regulated me and brought me down. I feel very serene, very at peace. I really appreciate you coming in and talking about this. It's a fun topic. As I said at the outset, you know, it's a bit foreign to me. At least I thought it was. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm doing some of it and I didn't even realize it. So I now have a name for it. It's not called long distance cycling. It's called mindfulness. And that's my line now. I'm sticking to it. Thank you for coming in. Come back. Let's talk about the art of breathing next time.
Ooh, okay.
Thank you for tuning in, folks. Appreciate you joining us. Please, hope you will subscribe to our Ridgeview YouTube channel. Ring that bell so that you get the latest notification. And don't hesitate to reach out to one of our trained counselors through our COVID helpline. We're here to help, and we hope you have a good rest of your day. Take care.